What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Bullpen. Today, I got somebody who I've been dying to connect with for years because this dude is literally a celebrity, okay? He can't go anywhere, especially here in Utah, and especially in a specific industry that we're going to talk about. He can't go anywhere without getting just swarmed by his fans, right? I've been wanting to connect with this guy for so long because what he's done, let me just kind of give you guys an idea. This dude has literally placed himself as probably the king, as like the head of one of the hardest and most difficult industries in the world. There's no question at what this dude has done. Like, by the way, most difficult, most challenging industries in the world, something that I have personally done myself, and I hated every second of it, right? But also one of the most competitive industries in the world. And this dude right here on the podcast today, I can't wait for us all to learn from him because he's conquered the whole fucking thing. If you want to talk about the king of an industry, this is him right here. Sam Taggart. Sam Taggart, founder of Door-to-Door Association, Door-to-Door Con, which is massive. Everyone knows about that. Speaker, author of ABC Money of Closing, podcaster, and CEO of the Door-to-Door Experts. Built a multi-seven-figure consulting firm in under 3 years. Consulted over 250 nationwide businesses, creating, implementing, and growing door-to-door programming. After selling 400 personal alarm counts, leading him to be the number one at Vivint. Anyone who knows who Vivint knows that's badass, right? Vivint, multi-billion-dollar company at this point, worldwide recognized, huge, and they even got Snoop Dogg.
Yeah,
it's dope.
It's pretty dope.
It's pretty dope. And being a former VP of Solcius, he felt compelled to create something greater. Sam has a strong passion for influencing and leading others. Sam's mission is to unify, up level, and bring honor and integrity to the door-to-door industry, which is huge, right? I can't wait to dive into this with you, man, because I want to pick your brain on this, right? He spends a lot of his time on empowering youth through his education and training programs, street smarts, teaching them how to learn. What is this? Recruit-O-Matic. What is that?
It's a software. So I have a couple softwares I started.
Oh, okay. All right. So another software and vanilla message, and is an avid real estate and crypto investor. Oh, crypto. Not good. Not going well right now.
I know. I just looked at Coinbase for the first time in like a month. I'm like, I wonder if it's changed.
Like shit.
Still sitting at 20 grand.
Well, dude, there's no question that, you've done some incredible things, man, right? I mean, there's so many things, obviously, I could list off about what you've accomplished, and that's just, and here's the cool thing about that. We just read that off, and someone listening to that is like, holy shit, dude, this dude's conquered the world, right? Everything he stepped into, he's basically, had success with, right? But what I love is the one question, everybody knows this, is like, how the hell did you get here, right? Because I love the story of how the hell you got to this point, like how the hell you became like the king of the door-to-door industry. Like I said, one of the most difficult and one of the most competitive and, brutal industries in the world. You have dominated that industry. And honestly, I don't even want to say dominated, unified that industry, which is even cool. Like that's incredible, because we were just talking about this a little earlier. It's so competitive, and it's so it has to be, because it's such a difficult place. You have to unify your teams. You have to make them feel us versus them. But you have successfully unified the door-to-door community. I know that's a big goal for you. But we'll dive into all that. But first, man, what's your story? Like, how'd you get here, man? Who's Sam Taggart?
Yeah, so thanks first off for having me on the show.
I'm excited.
What a privilege. So,
oh, shucks.
I was that little kid selling golf balls at the golf course. I was out painting curbs on the addresses all through high school.
Oh, really?
Started at like 11 doing magazines and 13 doing curbs, and then graduate high school 2 days later, ship out and do alarms. So this was back in like 2008. So it's like never had a W-2. So it was like all I knew was commissions. And what's funny is I think back to like my early years of knocking, and a lot of people don't see that hard school of hard knocks. Like the years of blood, sweat, and tears and bloody knuckles and getting your face kicked in, cops called on you, blood, you know what I mean? Like thrown in prison. Like people don't realize the crap that you have to go through. And all they do sometimes see you on the podcast, the main stages, like the New Yorker articles and stuff like that. It's like, they don't see the years of like face getting kicked in.
Oh yeah.
And
that's why I like talking about it.
Yeah, it's like
they have no idea.
They skip all that. I'm like, guys, like that was 2008 was my first like year of alarm sales, and I wasn't always the best. Like I was like an average, a little above average. Like I did well my first year, but not like the top guy. And then, so I did like 80 accounts. And then the next year I did 160. And then the next year I did
80 is good for alarm system is expensive, high ticket item, right?
It's respectable. The average guy's going to do like 40, 50.
Right.
And I did 80, you know what I mean? So it's like, and the best are doing like 300, right? Yeah. And so I went like 80, 160, 300, 400, you know, and I started just being like, okay, what's next? Yeah. And so it was a progressive growth. And I think like anybody listening, they don't see those, they just like, oh, you're automatically the best. I'm like, no, I just had to work at training and getting better and pushing myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I was, you know, one of Vivint's top reps every year. And I just was like, dude, like, this isn't it. Like, I didn't feel like what was next was go be a bigger top rep. Or better, you know, it's like I did it. I was like, okay, cool. I did the achievement. Yeah, and I felt like very unfulfilled. Like I was like, okay, the heavens didn't open up. I'm still here. Do I just keep doing it? So the next year, you know, I was number 1 in 2014. Then 2015, I was like number 5. And then I was like, I'm just not happy anymore. Like, this is cool. I'm making great money. But I then switched into the solar industry, became the VP of sales of a solar company for a couple of years into end of 2015. And that was fun. I grew this big solar company. We did well. But I felt like there was this like call. So I was in the desert on a 3-day meditation retreat where I just got dropped off and said, sit on a rock, fast, and don't move.
For what? How long?
3 days.
You sat on a rock for 3 days?
Well, it's 2.5, and then it started raining.
So what?
We had to like evacuate. So
wait, hold up. What?
Yeah. So like, I'm all into like weird, cool stuff. So summer of 2017, I do this meditation 3-day fast, and I had this vision, and it was this me speaking on this big stage, and I was like, what is that? And I kept asking God, I was like, what is that? What is that? What is that? And it was like, you need to throw an event. And I was like, for door to door. And I was like, do we have like a misconnection here? Like, bad signal. No, that's not a good idea. Because knowing how competitive, cutthroat, you're not going to get 2 competitors to stand in the same room and bring their people to do that.
Right. Because then they're going to like try to
poach each other. Yeah, it's like, I was like, it's called like a recruiting UFC fight. Like, you know, it's like best man gets your team. Like,
yeah, that's right.
And so, you know, and I was like, no, that's never going to work. And then I kept feeling this call to throw this event, door to door con. And well, at the time I didn't know the name of it. Yeah. So finally it felt so strong because I had already kind of been down this track of like, I started a Facebook page back in like 2012, being like, let's share best practices and tips and tricks. And, you know, and it kept getting shut down because people were like, you can't share secrets online. Like, why are you giving away your secrets? And I'm like, I don't know, because I want to make everybody good.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And people were throwing rocks at me, telling me to shut this stuff down. And so finally I was like, F you guys. Like, and then I was like, I'm just effing doing this. Yeah. And then I started a podcast and I called a couple of people. I was like, hey, would you be on my podcast? Even though I know you don't work for me, but like I respect you as in the industry. Yeah. And the first 2 people I called, they're like, why would I share my tips and tricks on a podcast? Like, that's what makes me good. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is exactly why this industry needs my mission, which was to unify, up-level, bring honor and integrity to this space. Because I was like, why do we live in such a scarcity mindset? Why is there this energy around lack or like me, or this like cutthroat industry? And I was like, can we deconstruct that? And so I was like, some people are not going to resonate with my mission, but I guarantee you there's probably other people out there that might align with what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I launched this event, and I got so much shit right when I launched it. People were like, cool. Like, is this a joke? Is this a Solstice recruiting event? You know what I mean? Yeah, right. Yeah. Good ploy, Sam. Like, I'm not bringing my people to this. And then finally, like, there was a time and place where I was like, I can't serve 2 masters. I can't be this like VP of sales recruiting and throwing this neutral switch.
Because no matter how many promises you make, they're like, he's going to throw in some pitch in
there.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. So I had to eventually just be like, I quit. Like, I felt so aligned and called, not knowing what it was going to turn into. I mean, that was over 5 years ago, that I had to be like, okay, I'm out. And I took a risk, lost money on the event, you know, like had really just kind of like, wow, I left a really good thing going. Yeah. And just got scrappy and tried to figure it out. So I started taking on consulting clients. I started, you know, Mastermind, which is still going. I mean, I started doing the event every year and added more events every year. So I have like 20, 30 events a year. And, you know, now we do, you know, several millions of dollars revenue every year doing our online training. So we have a whole virtual training system that we go to companies and build out their training to masterminds, to events, to coaching, to client, like consulting, to speaking, to all sorts of cool stuff. And just kept at it.
Jeez.
Stayed aligned with the mission, and now we're at where we're at.
Yeah. I don't think so. There's a lot I want to unpack there, but I don't think people really understand. Unless you've done it, I don't think you really can ever understand what it's like to put on an event. Like
Dude, it's hard.
A big event, not just like a little seminar, at a hotel, right? There's effort that goes into that. We're talking event.
Thousands and vendors and, liability. You got fire marshals and shit.
Yeah.
I remember like, move the chairs. You guys set them up crooked. Oh, that'll be $3,000. You're like, to move the chair. Can I just have my people? You can't touch the chair.
Yes.
You're like, can we hang a drape right here? That's an extra $8,000. I'm like, to hang a drape? Like, can I just go pin the thing up?
Yeah.
Like,
and then the week before, 2 weeks before, like some random $80,000 bill, you're like, what?
I just threw a little event. 250 people in Vegas with Bradley and Andy, and that thing costs like $300,000. Like, people don't realize like how much goes in to an event.
Yes, massive.
And I had never been to an event.
Yeah,
I'd never like seen it, like let alone planned one. I'm just like, cool.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I hope people come, and then nobody's buying tickets. And what's funny, the week of that first event, Vivint, just out of spite, decides to throw a free event down the hall at the Salt Palace with Grant Cardone.
Oh, you're kidding.
So I find out the week of, so does everyone else.
Yeah.
And they just are like, hey, come to our free event. It's a recruiting event, of course, to try to poach the 800 and something people that showed up to Door Con the first year.
Oh my God.
And I'm over here like, are you effing kidding me? Like, I'm like, really? Just to mess with me? Like, screw you. Like that again, why I'm effing doing this? Like, my mission is exactly the opposite of this.
Yeah.
And it completely backfired on him, which was the cool blessing.
Really,
of this.
it did.
Yeah. It like Todd and Grant, they looked like idiots, like throwing mud at people. And they're like, oh, yeah, you think you can recruit against us? We're the best. Like, why not work here? And it's just like.
Is Grant connected with Vivint?
Well, Todd and him, I guess, were friends until then.
Oh.
And then Grant calls Todd Peterson's wife Easy, and then they get on a fight on stage. So I'm talking like that's their event.
No way.
So everybody's like, Sam's over here, unify, let's be honest and like up level. And then they go over there, they're like, oh shit, this is a shit show. And then they walk back halfway through, and I'm like, wow, that was quick. Why is everybody come back? Yeah. And they're like, oh, that was embarrassing. Like, why'd we go over there? And then social media just blows up. And so what I thought was going to be the worst thing for us turned into the best thing for us.
Wow.
Because lesson number one, when you have a pure mission that is literally like aligned with like good principles and values, and it makes it so obvious when people try to like go evil on that. Yeah. It's like, cool, the light will prevail. Yeah. And I just held true. And I still to this day, I love them, and I have tons of friends there, and I'm always going to speak highly of them. I've even helped consult them now. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, hey,
that wasn't cool.
why would have you done that? And I told him, I was like, you guys are more than happy to bring Grant here. We'll like make it a win-win. Like, why? This is a complete attack against everything that I'm standing for. Yeah. And I just think it pisses me off in the sense of how often people play at a low frequency and think they can win, and they play an I win, you lose game. And so when I look for business opportunities, or I look for partnerships, or I look for creation of things, I'm just like, does it align with the mission? And is it a win-win scenario?
Wow. I had no idea that's what happened.
Dude, buck wild. But it was buck wild. Like their own VPs, Vivint's are like, we learned a valuable lesson today. Don't be idiots.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
You know what I mean? Just take all those posts down. People are like shooting, like, just easy target at that point. And they're texting me like, Sam, you got to monitor this. I'm like, wait, what happened? Yeah.
I was just out in Miami with Grant, actually, and that is one thing. He's in a good way, he's unfiltered, right? Yeah. He's really unfiltered.
Call the kid fat on stage.
Oh, like, I heard about
dude. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, everybody's like, wow, really?
Damn,
like,
dude.
And we're over here like, strengthen the family unit, like
honor, integrity, love, and kindness. Grant Cardone comes out. What's up, fat ass?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Jeez, that's awesome, man. Okay, well, let's back up actually to like how you grew up. Like, why were you so intrigued in like selling golf balls and like painting curbs and like making money that way? Like, where did that come from? Because I mean, did you guys grow up, poor and you had to make money in order to like make money, or did you just have something in you? You just wanted to do something, like, or just boredom? Like, where did that come from?
That's a really good question. Yeah. And those that are listening, like, need to understand. I grew up in the richest micropolitan of America. I was in Park City.
Oh, right.
On White Pine Canyon Road, where I could ski to my house, where all of my neighbors had basketball courts. You know what I mean? Like,
you could ski to your house?
Yeah, like I'm literally like talk about me growing up in a box that didn't know I was in a box.
Yeah.
Yet my dad was the type, unlike some of my friends, where he was like, you want a pair of shoes? You got 2 legs. You want a cell phone? You got 2 legs. You want a car? You got 2 legs. Like, he shops at the DI still to this day. Like, drives a Camry. You're like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
But, like, at the end of the day, I learned if I wanted something, I had the ego of, like, I earned it. And I think so many people have this element of, like, give me, and the world owes me, and my parents owe me, and my boss owes me, and I weirdly was just kind of raised as go get what you want, right? And so when I found my cousin who was out painting curbs, he was like, Sam, you want to come paint curbs with me on a Saturday? I was like, sure, I'll go try that out. And like went and made $100, and I was just like, well, what the heck? Like, I could go get a job, or I could do this. And you know, and it just like quickly triggered almost like a drug of like, I became more addicted to this, wow, eat what you kill, earn what you're worth, work when you want kind of mentality. And so when I learned that there was alarms or pest control or whatever, it was kind of like, oh, that's even cooler. I make way more than, you know, it's like I can do the same thing, but make more, like done. And so it's just like an easy transition for me. But now, you know, like, for example, Rob Sperry, like we work together on bigger projects. So I spoke in front of DECA's 2,000 students. Like they're an entrepreneur for high school kids. Yeah. And like I'm actually working on speaking in front of like 16,000 at their nationals in Atlanta. Wow. So like helping teach them street smarts, which is really to empower a new way of learning. Because it's like in the formal education system, it's like, yeah, you just kind of get programmed to like go to school, go to college, get a normal job. And I like, my dad luckily was an entrepreneur. So my dad, like when I dropped out of college, he was like, yeah, I don't know why you went to college. Where most parents are like, get to school or else you're never going to survive. Right? Yeah. Like my dad was like, why are you going to college? You're a pretty savvy kid.
Yeah,
like,
wasting your time.
You're wasting your time. And I was like, what a cool dad.
Yeah,
you know
that's awesome. Yeah.
And so I just kind of was raised in the sense of be creative, think differently, fight the grain, you know, because that was kind of my culture and my family unit. Yeah. And I always liked to do the opposite of what everyone told me. I was always an anti the system. Yeah. And I think that served me when it's come to business or come to door, or come to, you know, everyone's like, why, when are you going to get a normal job, Sam? And I'm like, I have a normal effing job. When are you going to get a normal job? You're working at effing Starbucks. I knock doors. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, that's not a real job though. I'm like, come try it, you dink. Like, it's a I get paid just like anyone else, except I just get paid way more than you do. Like, sorry. But I was just, I love that fight the grain mentality. And I don't know, it just served me throughout my whole life.
I mean, that's been a fascinating question I've talked to people about on this podcast, because obviously there's been a lot of successful people on this podcast, right? And it's fascinating to hear the stories of those who grew up with nothing, and then also the stories of people who grew up with everything, and to hear them both basically have the same mindset ingrained in them by their parents. You eat what you kill. Right. And
it was never like a lot of people would think like, Sam, you're going to take over the family business. Like, Sam, you're going to go work for your dad. Like, never even a thought. Hell no, I'm not going to work for my dad. Yeah. I get my own shit. Yeah. Like, and like, I even think of like when we talk about inheritance, you know, like we've started to have those conversations. And I'm like, I don't want your shit. Yeah. Like, and people were like, wait, Norman, it's like, how much of the inheritance do I get of the kids? Right. And I was like, I won't need your inheritance. Like, give it to the great grandkids at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be killing it no matter what. Like, so I've always had that mentality of like ownership over your own success. Yeah.
No, I mean that like, if there's one thing people, because they talk about, like, I've heard Gary Vee say this all the time. He says it's an advantage to grow up poor. I'm like, not really though, because you know if you grow up poor, you know, like it just depends on what your mentality is, what your parents instill in you. Because if they instill in you a victim mentality, that could be whether you grew up, you know, in a wealthy family or poor family. And a lot of times, actually, someone who grows up in a wealthy family gets used to the idea of I can do great things. Yeah. Right?
Just their expectation of life is a higher thing.
Exactly. That's what you want to do.
So I've studied this, and this is an interesting answer to that, and maybe you disagree or agree. I think there's generations, right? So let's say that my grandpa was broke ass. My dad, let's say he pioneers success. He's like, I don't want my kids to ever have to go up that way. Yeah, so he's got this extra give everything to my kids, which then enabled the kid and never taught them what he had to pioneer. Yeah. So what happens is it's like that second generational wealth gets debilitated. Instead of like okay, cool. Let me bring consciousness, not this vindictive, like this vendetta of like, oh, I'll show my kids a different life because my parents sucked. You know what I mean? Like that is where I think it becomes debilitating. Where I think if you could come into it as like, hey, I didn't have any handouts, therefore I'm not going to give my kids any handouts, meaning that was my best lessons. Like that was the value of what made me who I am.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I press that value onto my kids. That's when I think it becomes an advantage. He's like, I figured something out. It's the principles that my parents taught me of like work your ass off to get what you want and not debilitate my kids. Work your ass off to get what you want because I got here, you know, what you doing to get here. Like I remember it was weed every Saturday growing up, weed for 4 hours. And it was like, well, what's my allowance?
What kind of weed?
No, but
4 hours.
Yeah,
damn.
4 hours. Good
We're
song.
talking Park City, right?
Yeah. No, so it was, you know, you'd have to go weed the yard for 4 hours. And it was like, I would say, what was my allowance? Because I watched my friends always get an allowance.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, no, we don't pay allowance. It's called rent. It's called like a roof over your head and a pantry full of food.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for that. That's why you get a weed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they taught that kind of principle versus like you're just entitled to money every week because you exist.
Yeah.
Which that's how most parents are, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, oh God, yeah, dude, I love that because here's the thing. This is from that my father grew up with, you know, like actually nothing, right? Like his, you know, I could go into this whole thing, but like my father really worked his ass off to make sure that, you know, we understood, you know, that if you work hard, you can get to where you want to be because he's had a lot of success in what he's done, but it only came because he had nothing and he was determined to make sure that would not happen to us as kids, right? Yep. And his principle has always been growing up, and, you know, if you know anything about my story, it is that love is not weak, love is tough. And I think that is one of the hardest, I think that is one of the worst lessons that is being thrown around is this weak-minded, like only be kind and soft and loving and don't push them past their limits. Like they have their limits, you know, let's protect them, right?
Oh, and also like that the world's so dangerous.
Yes.
You're going to get sexually assaulted.
Yes,
you're going to get raped and kidnapped.
Yeah.
You're going to get...
If you go out to knock doors, what could happen?
Yeah,
right?
you're like, okay. Where it's like our parents, they grew up like, see you, mom, and be gone for 8 hours and who knows where land, like sitting in the bed of a truck with no seatbelts.
Right,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like a different way. It's like...
Yeah.
Now it's like so safe, like everything's gonna get you, and I'm like, well, I don't want my kids to grow up that way. Like,
no, yeah,
and hence why I'm teaching street smarts. Like street smarts is like get your face kicked in over and over and over again, so that you learn grit, hard work, rejection, real life communication that they're not learning in school.
Right.
No offense.
I know you're not. School's the biggest bunch of horse shit now ever. Like I hate school, and the only thing I think there should be trade schools. That's it. At this point, I'm over this whole curriculum thing. I think there should be trade schools. Obviously, we all agree we want a doctor to go to school. We want an engineer to go to school. That's awesome. But that means it's a trade school, right? Go learn the trade of it. Don't go to this, you know, structured program. It's basically just sending your kids off to be babysat.
So I'm actually building. I mean, I wasn't going to mention this, but
go ahead.
What I'm building right now is a technology platform to actually develop a new way of education, revolutionizing the formal education system.
Awesome.
In the sense of making it to where industry experts and trades can go host their system and their curriculum and their way of coaching on a platform that then creates a human development score. Because it's like nobody cares in any way, even in a job interview, you're not like, what was your GPA back like 5 years ago?
Right.
It's like, I care what you're doing today to actively track your habits, your goals, your achievements, who you're getting coaching through, what programs you're part of, what you're studying and learning, and like, I want to know what that looks like over the last 3 years, not what you did in college 10 years ago.
Human development score.
So it's called a human development system.
Yeah.
That's basically taking goal setting, learning, and assignments and then experts and coaches and you can use it in enterprise or you can use it through coaching, but like it's basically combining those elements into one system to aggregate a score to help you track what's your actually personal development, like you're developing. Yeah. Because so often we go to these conferences or we go to these coaches and we go to these goal setting things and we're like New Year's resolution, and then it's like see you later in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? It's like there's no accountability. And if I can, as an employer or as just me, for me, see the progress see the tracking, see the numbers and the data to actually put learning to result, habits and goals to result, and put those two in one platform, it literally is a way for us to change how we self-enroll into learning, coaching, developing, which is what the world needs.
It does, and there's no question. I mean, more and more people are doing homeschool because, especially with the way that what everyone's revolutionized. We don't talk about this, how Zoom and what happened with Corona made it so being like working from home. Well, what about school from home? Look at what happened there.
That's what That's what it's going to be for. I want people to put their homeschool. My kids homeschool. Yeah. So it's like I want to be the instructors or the curriculums to be able to be put through there and me to be able to track it. Like the problem is I'm divorced, so I don't know what the frick my ex is doing in the homeschool. I want to be able to have a system that shows me here's their progress.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge reason that we're building this, is just because I feel like there isn't a system out there that's a universal platform that's globalized, that's centralized, like that yet is it's a decentralized one platform like Facebook. It's anybody can put whatever they want. Like, what I mean? It's a social media decentralized free community that we live in, right? Yeah. Instagram, same thing. Yeah. But where is that for the education system on a global platform?
That's fascinating. Genius though, because I love that idea, because here's the only pushback I see people giving with something like that is it's important for kids to socialize, right? And here's actually what I will say. Is a lot of people say why school's important, like high school and elementary school, is because unfortunately there are a lot of deadbeat mothers and fathers out there who don't even feed their kids, don't watch their kids. And so by the kid actually going to school, they get some meals, right?
No, and I don't disagree with that. Like I say, still go to school, but it's like it empowers that hungry me version of 14-year-old me. Yeah. That's like, this is all cool, but I'm really actually interested in this trade or marketing or like learning how to start a business right now.
Right.
It's like those tools and resources are accessible. Yeah. It's just we're throttling it. Yeah. And it's like I think our younger class could get a head start even in life if they just had this visible to self-enroll in. Yeah. And I'm not saying I have to replace like going to school. I'm just saying if they're going to homeschool, like why not have a better system and technology and communication system to track it, and then start creating online communities. Like I agree, they should be socializing, and there's an events piece to this of what we're building. Right. So it's like, think of like festivals for personal development. Right. So it's like you have a macro stage. So think of like we all come to Tony Robbins, but then it's like, cool, then there's micro communities that have stages elsewhere. Right. It's like if I want to learn real estate, go there. If I want to learn freaking marketing, go there. If I want to learn finance, go here. If I want to, you know what I mean? Like there's an element of community and tribal like events that create that as well.
I agree. I mean, again, like, because I'm saying that's one argument, but on the other argument, you can argue that schools have never been less safe. We talk about school shootings happening wherever, all the shit that happens in schools, what's being taught in schools. How do you control what a teacher's teaching in schools? They're bringing in, like these people that teach their, this agenda, and it's like, holy shit.
They're paid $50,000 a year. It's like I want my kids to be taught by the guy that's making $500,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Right. Like I want my kids to go learn from like real actual experts that are masters in what they do. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying like I actually am like so grateful for school teachers it's almost like in my mind, I'm like, you're doing a service to society. Congrats for taking so low pay and doing such a hard job. Cause there's no way I'd sit there and babysit 8-year-olds all day. Like I could not do that. Right. But at the same time, like there's a level of development that these teachers aren't getting because they're not in the real world, like actually going and starting businesses or actually going through a lot of those life lessons that come through what creates the content and the people out there doing things are creating that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's like the next iteration of the vision that I'm creating, which is really cool.
I love that. No, that's genius. I mean, I can't wait to see the future of what ends up happening because something has to change. Yeah. It really does, and I think we start changing that, we're in a lot better position as just society, right? And dude, like when it come back to your story, like your parents taught you basically how to live and struggle, right? Like, and like, that is the truth, right? And people would say like, oh, he didn't struggle, he didn't grow up poor, but it's like, no. They taught you how to fight your own battles, how to learn how to struggle. And literally, love is struggle. Yes. That's kind of the definition of love. And if you take the true definition of love, which is charity, right? You understand that actually the struggle and the pain is what love is. Right.
And it's your responsibility if you're receiving that kind of love to perceive it that way. Yes. The problem is it's like your decision to react negatively or positive is up to you at that point. Yeah, right. And like, for example, I went to, this is a great story. So Saturday, my girlfriend was like, Thursday, Friday, went to Chris Cron's event.
Oh, yeah.
And then Saturday I was like, oh, let me come. I know Chris. Like, let's just like go and I'll say hi and sit in for like an hour or two.
Right, yeah.
I show up, the security's like, no, you don't have a pass. I was like, well, like, let me text Chris. Chris doesn't text me back. I was like, dude, like, just let me in. They're like, nope. I'm like trying every which way to like, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, I throw events. I'm like, I am so impressed and I'm so proud of these security people to just hold true to the people that paid, the people that should be here, the private, you know what I mean? And they didn't let me in.
Yeah.
And I was like, good for them. Where some people would have been like, hell, fetch it. And I'm like, I didn't pay for a ticket. I should, like, they're doing their job.
Yeah.
And I responded in the sense of what a life lesson that I get to learn to tighten up my security at my events.
Yeah.
To really honor the people that did pay at my own damn events. And I learned such a cool lesson on Saturday. And I'm like, some people probably wouldn't have responded in the sense of what an opportunity that they gave tough love,
right,
but respect. And I was like, good for them.
Yeah.
And I think too often people see it as the victim and they see it as like, oh, I should have and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's a perfect example of it's your opportunity to say, my parents, my boss, you know, my boss is reaming down my throat because I'm not knocking enough. It's like, okay, like you're welcome that he's reaming down your throat because he wants you to make more money and actually be a top performer.
Yeah.
Why are you bitching?
Yeah.
Like, that's a good thing because if he wasn't paying attention to you and didn't give you any kind of feedback, then he doesn't believe in you.
Right. Exactly.
Like, thank you, coach, for benching me because I freaking missed 6 in a row.
Yeah.
That should wake you up and be like, you need to practice more, you dink, and get your shot better. Like, thank you for the love and the people that were willing to go there in your life to hold for a higher standard. Yeah. And I don't think people respond enough good to that.
I mean, here's the key point of that is like when you know they're doing it for your benefit, right? Because I could be a hard ass on you, just chew you out every single day, you know, to do this. And if I never ever once let you know that I'm proud of you when you do accomplish, or I never let you know that I'm doing this because I see a potential in you, then you're just going to think I'm an asshole the whole time. I just hate being around him. But if you do it from the presence of I'm doing this because I love you, because I believe in you, then you know that pain that they're bringing on you is for your benefit. And if you just embrace that, lean into that pain, lean into that fear you feel, you will grow. That's 100%. The point of a coach. That's the point of a mentor, is to push you past your limits, not to fluff you up, right? Oh, you're great. You're wonderful. Fluffy this. You know, it's like, no, push past because you're not doing enough, fucker.
And the bigger problem is most parents weren't ever trained.
Yes.
So if you think about it, it's like nobody taught your parents how to be coaches and mentors.
Right.
They weren't naturally thinking themselves as coach and mentor. They're actually probably just some other normal employee that's getting beat up at work just like you were.
Right.
And to recognize that, like, it's been so interesting. Like, luckily my dad was an entrepreneur and he had like a smart, savvy head. A lot of parents weren't that. They had normal jobs. They had, you know, they went to work, they got bossed around, and they didn't ever learn how to create leadership and coaching and really be a steward. And so a lot of times we blame our parents instead of give them grace and saying, oh my God. And it's hard to do that and disassociate because they're 30 years older than you. And you're like, well, they must know. They're 30 years older than me. Yeah. Put yourself on, take out time, take out age, put yourself on a neutral playing field and now assess it and say, if I'm them 30 years from now and lived a normal life and job, did I ever get a playbook and coaching and mentorship and seminars on how to be the most loving but stern and best mentor coach for my kids? It's like, no, they were just doing the best they could.
Right.
So give them some grace. And now what are you going to do with that information?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're really on the topic of like struggle here because, like, let's be honest, your industry, right, and what you've been in is probably the most struggle-filled industry in the world. I did door-to-door for 2 years, and my gosh, right? I pride myself on being a hard worker, and I hated every second.
There should be a book. The next book I should write would be the lessons learned from getting your face kicked in 1,000 times a week. You know what I mean? like that's the thing though. Like, what lessons do you learn from the school of hard knocks? And I'm talking physically hard knocks. Like literally, like I'm not a figurative hard knocks. I'm like, no. This is hard knocks.
Yeah, it is.
And the reason that verbiage or idiom was formed was because of probably door to door. Like they call it hard knocks probably because of door to door.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like, if you're rejected 100 times a day, what's going through your head? Yeah. What's the fear, the insecurities, the doubts, the why me, the unworthiness, like all those things that push through the struggle, the heat, and it's like for me to do that for 20 years, like people don't realize like that's a lot of freaking face getting kicked in.
Yes.
And I think that, I think people underestimate like that more than 10,000 hour rule. It's like you underestimate that conditioning, the thick skin you can develop through that job.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really has put themselves, I think a lot of people probably listening to this have never put themselves in a challenging situation that created pain like door-to-door would.
Right.
Like they've sat in a desk, they've had leads handed to them, or they've just had, here's your SOP, 5 o'clock, you check out. Yeah. They've never been in a place where it's do or die. Yeah. I don't eat if I don't sell. Yeah. My bank account, I make $0 this week and worked 80 hours. Yeah. Those situations are real in door-to-door. Oh, yeah. You worked 80 hours and made no money. Congratulations. That feels good. Yeah. Where you work 80 hours at your job and you're paid a W-2, you're getting paid. Yeah. Like it's just regardless of performance. Yeah. And so like to have to learn that hunter, the resilience, the emotional control, the self pick-me-ups 100 times over, helps you in any aspect of life.
I mean, oh, geez. Let's just make sure everyone listening to this understands, because I feel like people understand door-to-door, but let's just break this down. Door-to-door, especially for summer sales door-to-door, right? Because some people do year-round door-to-door.
It's a little lax.
Yeah, right. It's a little bit more like, you go out the prime hours, right? It's not like day-to-day. In summer sales, where you go 3 to 4 months in the summer, right, which a lot of college kids are doing, which is a great way to make money. You will make a lot of money if you just push through and learn, is you get 3 to 4 months, and you go out, you're starting every day, 9 a.m., and you don't come home until 9 p.m. You're taking a 30-minute lunch in your car maybe, right? And guess what? The entire time I can go home. You can drive home. You can go back to your apartment and relax the entire time.
Or you could ship back to Utah.
Or you could ship back.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And you'd be like, I was that kid that just couldn't freaking hack.
Right, yeah.
Which happens.
It happens all the time because like you are out there every single day. And we're talking summer, so it is the heat. And you're standing in these doorways. And a lot of time these doorways, they're not insulated. The heat
microwave oven of sun collection.
This metal door that's just emanating heat on you, and you're just dripping sweat looking at people. Just
and you're swash. You're getting chiggers in the legs. You're getting like, you just didn't even know what chiggers were. Yeah. I was like, what did you just say? No, chiggers. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, but then, like that's, and then you're in this, and then if you want to perform, you need to knock 200 doors a day, probably, right? Around those numbers, depending on your industry, maybe 200 doors a day to maybe make 3 sales. That means that 197 people every single day are not just telling you, oh, no, thanks. No, we're good. But they're going like, what the hell are you doing here, right?
Get the fuck off my property. Get the fuck off. I'm talking like, it's not
I'm calling the
people.
cops on. No. And honestly, I get it, because people have now knocked on my door, and I felt myself like, come on, But I'm like, no. I need to show grace. I understand what they're doing.
I've been there.
So I'll open the door, like, hey, guys, I love you. Next door, we're not interested. We already have that.
Water.
And here's some water. And they keep pushing. I'm like, oh, I know why you're pushing. I understand the training you just had, but I'm sorry. And I shut the door.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no grace in it, man. Yeah. You're like brutal. I mean, hell, like I had an experience where a guy literally attacked me on the porch, like physically came at me, attacked me. And I'm in a fist fight on the front porch with this guy. Yeah. And he's just this crazy dude, because you don't know who's on the other side of the door. Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to fist fight in some random area with some guy because he's like, get the fuck off my property, and swings at me. Yeah. Like, holy shit.
Dude, it is nuts. The stories. Like yesterday I had an interview with a company that reached out about doing a documentary on me.
You should.
And dude. I was like, they're like, so what do you think the story would be? I'm like, what do you think the story should be? All the crazy shit that goes on with the door. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let me tell you. They're like, no way. I was like, the problem is we'd have to reenact them, because to try to figure out when and how to catch all of those would be hard. But
you'd have to film from across the street in the car.
Yeah, you're just like hidden camera like all day for like many reps, and you would catch so many crazy things.
Dude, yeah, like film like a few reps throughout a summer, right? Yeah, and you would capture so many cool things.
I was like, that would make the most epic documentary.
Please make that. Please. The Life of Door-to-Door Guy. Yeah. I would love to watch that, because then I know I'm not alone.
Yes.
But dude, like, I'm going to tell all my kids, as long as it doesn't become like illegal or someday, like 20 years from now, I want all my kids to do at least one summer.
Oh, it's a rite of passage for my girls.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny, like my 7-year-old, she's like in class and they're doing this project of they're like drawing out what they want to do for their future career, and everybody's like firefighter, policeman, and she's like lemonade stand operator, and they like for some reason they filmed it. They sent it to me because they thought it was so cute. And the teacher was like, well, why do you want to do lemonade stand operator? And she's like, well, because I can make money. I'm like, yes, that's right.
That's right.
Like, learn it young. Like, you go out and sling something, you make money.
I
like,
love
you can
that.
make money anywhere. But I was like, I love that she's already getting conditioned of like that mentality of like, you know, go eat what you kill and you don't have to take this normal standard W-2.
Right.
Here's what you're paid.
Yeah, that's badass. I love that. I mean, so let me ask you about this, right? Obviously, we're here in Utah, which is pretty much the capital of the world for number one, MLMs, number two, door-to-door companies, right? I mean, I don't know any other state, any other location that has, you know, so many and huge companies that were built off of those two systems. And I think we all know where that comes from. That comes from our upbringing. Are you LDS? Or you're right, I asked you that. You were raised LDS, right? So that comes from the upbringing of, you know, being a member of the church, right? Or like growing up in the church.
Yep.
Because I'm assuming, do you serve a mission?
Yep.
Where'd you go, by the way?
Argentina.
Entonces habla español.
Sí.
That's my favorite thing to do, right? But the mission, I mean, let's just talk about that. It's like 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds being sent out to literally do door-to-door. In any part of the world, right? Same thing every single day, all day long for 2 years, knocking doors, but you're not selling pest control or home security. You're selling Jesus, right?
Yep.
You're selling Jesus, which is a tough sell. And I always thought about this. I'm like, man, if I got a residual on the 10% tithing,
Sign you up for a lifetime contract. I get 10% of your 10%. So
right.
Okay.
You're like, I would do this. Yeah.
I'm hunting them down. I'm like, you haven't paid this month.
That's right. You need to come back to church. We'd have super high retention rates.
Yes.
It'd be great. Yeah, no, but I mean, that's obviously where that comes from, right? Yep. I think there's amazing things with that, but there's also a weird, interesting thing of being here in Utah, right? Which we were talking about before is there's a weird energy here in Utah with this like entrepreneur life, but like the door-to-door life, it's ultra competitive. And I still don't know how to describe it to people because they ask me about it. I'm like, I don't know. So what's your take on it?
It's interesting. So a guy reached out about a year ago named Todd from the New Yorker.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, we want to write an article on you. And it actually just published in this month's.
I saw that. Okay, yeah.
This month's thing. So it took about a year.
Congratulations, yeah.
But it was interesting because he flew out probably 4 times to do the interview. And he went out and knocked with me a couple times.
Oh,
like,
really?
It was like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And one of the elements of that was I introduced him to a high up in the church, and he started to interview. He'd interviewed my dad, who was mission president. And, you know, so like he went into the whole, let's go down the rabbit hole of how's the church made an impact on door to door. And it talks a little bit about it in the article.
Interesting.
And what I found, because obviously I was in Dallas and had no Utah companies, and I had 60 business owners last week training them on how to start door-to-door companies, like and how to do it. So there's the non-Utah, we'll call it Idaho, Utah, Arizona kind of world.
Yeah,
And then there's like everyone else.
Yeah.
And 2 different door-to-door communities.
So you're just to make sure. So you're pairing Idaho, Utah, Arizona, which is totally fair. Yeah, that
so
kind
it's
of
like that kind of corridor is
Yeah.
like kind of got this own culture.
True.
And then you have like everyone else.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And so what is interesting, there's two pieces I want to talk to, and so I might be long-winded to what you just asked.
No, please go for it. Yeah.
One is that kind of cultural, it's okay, helped obviously door-to-door, meaning you go outside in Kentucky and you're like, come do door-to-door sales. They're like, that's a thing? Like,
Yeah, right.
People do that still? Like,
Right.
it's like, no. In Utah, it's like, come do door-to-door sales. Oh, you're the 17th person that's asked me this week. You know,
You've got
it's not if I'm going to do it. It's where am I going to do it?
Which company am I gonna go with?
And
Yeah.
how much are they going to give me? And,
Yeah.
you know, it's like a whole different answer to that. And so culturally, just year after year, it was like when I was graduating high school, I was already getting recruited out of high school, even though I went to high school in Fresno, California. And it was like a matter of, you know, which would I do, pest or alarms? It wasn't like, should I do it?
Yeah.
And so it was like a battle between them just because I come from that like world, right? And I think that's helped obviously cultivate a higher expect. It's like the PRs or the culture of like keep breaking out world records, keep getting bigger and stronger kind of mentality of like basketball 15 years ago versus basketball today.
Right.
The NBA is just a different speed, a different pace. They come better and stronger because of cultural basketball, right? So Utah has created the standard. Then you have outside the world where there's no real community of cutthroat, competitive, people jumping ship, leadership stemming from leadership, and it's not the same.
Yeah,
so that's one element of why it's kind of like the Mecca. But two is this interesting expectation. I talked about this on, like, I'm writing a book right now, and yesterday we were jamming on this concept of the box. And I think in Utah, there's this, like, it is one of the highest per capita entrepreneurs, entrepreneur per capita state.
No question, yeah.
And there's this, like, even moms. Every mom is like stay-at-home mom, and then what do? Need to start some weird side hustle.
doTERRA, Young Living.
Yeah, like, well, you don't have a boutique? Like, you're obviously not killing it as a mom. Like, every good mom has a boutique.
Sorry, you don't have a blog?
Yeah, like, wait, what? Like, you're not an influencer?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so it's this element of this societal pressure to kind of keep up with the Joneses. And two reasons I think that is one, there are these little communities where it is like a big city, small town though. And because everybody's going to the same church, everybody's going and talking, they're in each other's worlds, they're in each other's businesses. And so the ego mind naturally wants to compare. And that's a huge problem in my opinion, because it puts this unexpected pressure that's not really, it's fake. It's like why is there this need of pressure to be a mommy blogger and to be X entrepreneur and to, and to go earn X income and keep up with your neighbor? And it's just because we're so submerged in each other's like little worlds. But the problem is it creates this judgment and comparison and expectation life. And that can put a lot of pressure that's really unnecessary on one's mind in life, that if they're not conscious of it, that could really hurt mental health.
No question.
And hence why we have a big suicide rate. That's why we have a self-worth rate and highest boob job rate. And, all those things, dude, Xanax rate.
People don't, we have huge Xanax rates.
You think of you look at the real internal problems it's created in our community, and you're like, oh shit, like, how do we reverse that? And so, first off, it's just one, admittance and awareness, right? And so I think one of my missions and one of my messages that I continue to preach is it's like this achievement, but also fulfillment. And one, if they're always chasing a comparing mind, it's really hard to ever feel fulfilled because you're never enough. You're always going to find somebody else to compare yourself to. And so it's this practice of deconstructing those beliefs that maybe you've had imposed on you for your whole life that you weren't even conscious of. And that's a big piece that I'm like trying to help this community, not just in door to door, but also in this Utah or just life and anybody. Like it can happen to anybody. Help them deconstruct or bring light to.
Yeah, I mean, well, dude, like the height has Xanax, antidepressants, right? Massive problem here in Utah, right? And like, what's funny is we talk about, plastic surgery. Is Utah, I believe, I don't know if it's Utah Valley or whatever, but like it has like the highest per capita next to like LA.
Yeah, you're just you're like Miami, Salt Lake, and Utah in LA. You're like, wait, what? Why Salt Lake? Like, weird one to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like Denver, like Salt Lake, like what? Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's just, and I don't even know how to put a finger on it, but I think that's a great way to articulate it, is just this, since everyone has that kind of mentality of something like that, it's just this competitive nature. It's almost like this underground competitive nature too. Yeah. Because there's a front that's put on.
For you. Yes. But not. And it just pisses me off. Yeah. It's like you can feel it energetically, but a lot of times it's not said.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, that's the struggle that I'm conflicting energetically wise that has really helped. One, it's kind of like, it's almost like disheartening sometimes when I get into certain communities that I'm just like, you guys just like, you're on your own little like self-aggrandized pedestals that make no sense. Like, and when you can get off that, get outside your box, start looking at things from different lenses of like, is this my lens or is this a neutral lens? Is this God's lens? Is this, what perspective am I seeing things from? And it takes practice to be there, right? To slow things down and say, oh shit, is this coming from my own ego lens or is this coming from a neutral loving lens? Yeah. And I watch myself and I've had to like really intentionally practice that to where I can start approaching people no matter what they look, what they make, what they do, and just being like, dude, I'm coming with you with love, and I hope you can enlist in my mission, and I want to understand your mission and see where we can support and honor each other.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If we're on podcast, there's a lot of questions, but I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing the way you're talking, right? And I get this feeling that you're on a really, really important journey right now in your life, right? Is that correct?
Very correct.
Okay. Because you can hear people, I hear people on this podcast all the time talking about stuff, but I hear something in your voice right now talking about all these things, and I can just hear this journey that you're on, right? And I didn't know if that'd be personal to ask, but can I ask you what kind of journey you're on? Because it seems very powerful.
It's big. Like, I don't know how to explain it. But, no, and it's hard. Sometimes it's like humbling, you're like, why me?
Yeah.
Right? Same thing, like when I got that call, I'm sitting in a desert meditating, and you go, wait, why me?
Yeah.
You're like, no, there's a million other people that should be doing this. I'm not the shit. Like it's like this humbling of like, well, why would it be Sam that gets to be this badass guy that revolutionizes door to door and hosts these events and has thousands in this, oh shit, like the New Yorker, the documentary, it's like, you're like, me? Like, I could give you 50 other people that probably should be it.
Right. Yeah.
But I've just had a really good relationship to God, and just saying like, I just feel like I've been called to do some really cool shit. And this journey that I've been on, for the last 2 years, it's been deconstructing a lot of beliefs and systems around, limitations in life that had been superimposed on me. Like, I look at my dad, I'm like, good for him. He pioneered a new life for us, because he didn't grow up super rich. And he just broke through all those economic boundaries, but still kind of had this scarcity mentality. I'm like in the next chapter of like, hey, what can I do that is a massive impact for society today? And it started with me this 5 years of chapter of like that door-to-door community I've served in a really high level, and I will continue to do so, but there's a next level, and it's much more beyond just door-to-door sales. I got to have this playground that was really cool. Yeah. And what we're building with this new app and this new platform will, like I'm telling you, it's been like God sent. Like, it's just like door-to-door. It was so clear as day. It wasn't like I want to do this business because these other people told me and this idea and I'm going to copy this. It was like, no one's doing that. It's a new ocean, and you're going to go create it. I'm like, really? How do I do that? I'll help you figure it out as you go. Just trust. Like, okay. And when God calls and he says, go do something, and you're like, shit, how? That's going to, like, that sounds so crazy. No one's doing that shit. It's like, okay, God just said to do it, so I'm just going to do it. And I don't know how I'm going to fund it. I don't know who's going to be the part of it. I don't know how big it, like, okay, just do it. And I just lived that way. And so this next iteration of this human development system and kind of this new age of way that we track and develop and learn and coach, and, it's a coach's tool to better expand the lives they lead. Because the problem is everybody's self-proclaiming they're a coach or they're an influencer or they're this, but there's no real system behind it. They're like got in a Google spreadsheet and they've got this thing, and then they're like, I'm a coach, and you're like, yay. Like, how do I provide actual instruction and tools and resources to these kind of more self-made experts and coaches that rightfully could be, rightfully should be. Yeah. It's just there's no framework for them. Yeah. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes over the next 10, 15 years. And I really feel like it's the next big journey.
Yeah. Well, I love like just listening to you right now, because like I said, like, people come on here talk about business and all this stuff, and I get a lot of great advice. And, I know I'm selfish on these things because I just like listening.
Yeah,
I like taking notes.
I have a podcast. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, selfishly, I'm asking you this question.
I'm asking you this question. If they learn something cool, but I know I'm learning.
Yeah. You're not here. You're just cameras.
Yeah, you're just cameras here, right? No, but but it's fascinating when I listen to you, right? It's because I wish more entrepreneurs looked at their mission, right? And I wish more entrepreneurs looked at their business and what they are capable of, because they're doing such incredible things, and recognize what it really could be at a higher level other than just a cool branded business. It is literally a mission that was called from the higher power, right? Yep. And that's what I've always believed is I'm going to do these things. And because, like you said, like I felt the calling. I know, and not just the calling, like I've had, some, especially in the last year, some of the most incredible experiences in my life with a calling of like, I have to do something greater, right? The business is the platform to accomplish something greater than myself and what God would have me do, right? So that's why I'm listening to you here. I'm like, you're not just talking about building door-to-door con, you're not just talking about a really cool brand and niche marketing and this is this. I'm listening to you. I'm like, there's something else happening there, right? Which that's the thing is like, sometimes you're building the brand and then that's what leads you to this
it
other
was a
thing.
great stepping stone.
Yeah.
And who knows what next stepping stones will need to take place, but it's clear as day, like the need in society, the impact that's everyone's asking for. And it's just like some leadership has got to step up. Myself has to step into the higher version of me to go lead this next movement and this next culture.
That's awesome, dude. Dude, I'm excited to see what you do, man. Because I'm hearing it, and I know you're going to do it. Obviously, you've had, a ton of success with this other stuff, but I'm excited what you're about to do, man. Because I just hear it in your voice. I'm like, this is going to be cool, whatever it is.
It's cool. And I'm like leaving some vagueness to it, 'cause I'm like, we don't need to go into all the little nitty gritty. You guys will see it here in the next minute, but it's been a really, really cool project.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait, bro. Dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on the bullpen, man. We just spit some fire for, a full hour here. This was awesome, dude. I'm excited to get to know you more too. This was really cool. And listen, actually, everybody got to know, Door-to-Door Con's happening, in January?
January 20th and 21st.
Yeah, and I mean, guys, he's got a pretty dope speaker lineup. Do you want to?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
So I haven't told it to anybody, so you're the first to hear. So
Hell yeah.
Jordan Peterson. He's sold out the Vivint Arena. Like,
Dude.
if you're somebody that's like even not in door-to-door, like just to go see that guy speak would be
I want to go.
Yeah. I mean, he is one of the most interesting, intellectual, challenger thinker. And I just really align with some of the, there's some stuff I'm like, okay, that's cool. But some of the stuff he says, it's it makes you think. And there are not enough people. There's so many Gary V's and Grant Cardone's. There's work hard, 10X, and that's cool. And I love everybody. It's just, I like how he's challenging philosophy and belief systems. And then you have David Meltzer, who's just a spiritual juggernaut. He's a freaking stud. And you have Tom Billio, who is a great business entrepreneur and has interviewed and picked the brains of so many amazing people. Yeah. So insightful and such a pure heart. And so it's having guys like that, really align with what I'm preaching and what I'm moving towards. And I'm excited. And then we'll have 30 other workshop speakers and vendors and it'll be a whole experience. And so if you're looking for leadership and sales and recruiting and business entrepreneurship, that would be an event to go to.
Even if you're not in door-to-door, absolutely worth it.
Oh, we have people wives come in and everybody it's turned into it's called Door-to-Door Con, but everybody knocks doors. I don't care what you're doing, and it's just what is the door you're not knocking because you're scared, and how do you get more motivation to go do that and build a relationship to resilience, and all that stuff's going to be covered there. And we have a recruiting summit in October. If you can't wait till January in San Diego, 20th through the 23rd. So if you're a recruiter, you're trying to find salespeople, you're wanting to network market or go and find opportunities to find talent, stuff like that, that'd be a cool event to go to. It's more intimate, 100 people. And I don't know. We do all sorts of stuff. You can find my podcast, DDD Podcast, or DD Experts on YouTube, or just look me up, Sam Taggart on Instagram. I'll pop up. Absolutely.
Go follow this guy, guys. Everyone go follow him. We're going to drop a link in here for you guys, everyone to go. Make sure you go Door-to-Door Con. Even if you're not in door-to-door, go, because what I've had so many friends who have been to Door-to-Door Con, and just what you put on, it's an incredible experience. One of the biggest events that you see all over America, right? This is definitely one of them to be to. You talk about Jordan Peterson. He's literally a philosopher. I think he will go down as, the modern day Carl Jung, right? Or Socrates. He is a philosopher of today's day who has spread a message across the world. That's what he is. And I can't wait for you to have him on stage. I want to go listen. So that's incredible. Well, dude, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you. Everybody go follow this guy and make sure I'll see you at Door-to-Door Con.
Thanks for coming on, brother. Thanks, man.